It was our anniversary, and I wanted to surprise my husband at his favorite restaurant. I walked in wearing a simple dress, excited and hopeful, but the hostess looked at me like I was trash. "Security, remove this charity case," the manager ordered. 2 guards grabbed my arms, pulling me toward the exit while everyone laughed. Then my husband walked in. "My name is Eliana, and this is my story. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. This story has a twist you won't see coming. Trust me, you need to watch until the very end." Now, let me take you back to that unforgettable day. I woke up that morning with butterflies in my stomach. It was October 17th, our 5th wedding anniversary. The sun was streaming through the bedroom windows, but the other side of the bed was already empty. Adrian had left early for an important board meeting. I smiled, running my hand over his pillow. 5 years. Sometimes it still felt like yesterday when he proposed to me in that tiny coffee shop where we first met. I got up and walked to my closet, looking at the rows of simple dresses and comfortable clothes. People always found it strange that the wife of one of the city's wealthiest businessmen dressed like this. But Adrian never cared. That's what I loved about him. He fell in love with me when I was a waitress struggling to pay rent, wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation. He didn't want me to change, and I didn't want to either. I pulled out my phone and called him. He answered on the second ring, and I could hear the buzz of his office in the background. "Good morning, beautiful." His warm voice filled my ear. "Happy anniversary." "Happy anniversary, honey," I said, smiling. I was thinking, can we meet for dinner tonight? Somewhere special? There was a pause, and I heard papers shuffling. "Sweetheart, I have back-to-back meetings until 6. This merger is taking everything out of me." My heart sank a little, but then an idea sparked. "That's okay. How about I make a reservation at La Cuisine Royale? You know, your favorite place? You can come directly from the office, and I'll be waiting for you there." "La Cuisine Royale?" He sounded surprised. "Are you sure? You always say it's too fancy." "It's our anniversary, Adrian. I want to do something you love." I could hear the smile in his voice. "You're amazing, you know that?" "Okay, yes, let's do it. I'll wrap up as quickly as I can and meet you there." "What time?" 7 o'clock? "Perfect. I love you, Eliana. Can't wait to see you tonight." "I love you too." After we hung up, I immediately called the restaurant. A polite woman answered, and when I mentioned Adrian's name for the reservation, her tone shifted to something almost reverent. "Of course, Mrs. Eliana. 7 p.m. for 2. We'll have our finest table ready for Mr. Adrian." I thanked her and hung up, feeling excited. This was going to be perfect. The rest of the day flew by. When evening came, I stood in front of my closet again. I chose a simple red dress that Adrian had always liked. It was modest, nothing flashy, no designer label. I paired it with comfortable sandals and my regular handbag. I looked at myself in the mirror and felt beautiful, not because of what I was wearing, but because I was comfortable being myself. I called a taxi and gave the driver the address. As we drove through the city, I watched the buildings get taller and more luxurious. La Cuisine Royale was in the heart of the financial district, surrounded by glass towers and expensive cars. When we pulled up to the entrance, I saw valets rushing to open doors of Mercedes and Bentleys, women in glittering gowns, and men in tailored suits stepped out onto the red carpet leading to the entrance. I paid the driver and stepped out. The valet looked at me, then past me, confused about what car he was supposed to park. I smiled at him and walked toward the entrance, my heart beating with anticipation. The moment I stepped through those tall glass doors, I felt it. Eyes on me. The lobby was spectacular, with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that reflected the warm golden light, and standing behind a sleek podium was the hostess, a woman in her 30s wearing a designer suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked up as I approached, and I watched her eyes travel from my face down to my red dress, to my simple sandals, and back up again. Her perfectly painted lips pressed into a thin line. "Can I help you?" Her voice was cold, nothing like the warm greeting I'd heard her give the couple who'd entered before me. "Yes, hello," I said with a warm smile. "I have a reservation under Adrian's name for 7 p.m. Her eyebrow arched so high it almost disappeared into her hairline. She tapped on her computer screen, and I saw her eyes widen slightly when she found it. There was a little VIP star next to the reservation. "Adrian," she repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. "The Adrian?" "Yes, that's my husband," I said simply. I watched her face change. First shock, then disbelief, and then something that looked like amusement. She actually laughed, a short, sharp sound that made several people in the waiting area turn to look. "Your husband?" She said it loud enough that everyone could hear. "You expect me to believe that?" I felt my cheeks getting warm, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm not asking you to believe anything. I made the reservation myself this afternoon. You can check." Another staff member, a younger woman, had drifted closer, curiosity evident on her face. The hostess, whose name tag read Patricia, glanced at her colleague and smirked. "Ma'am, this is a 5-star establishment. We don't appreciate pranks." "I'm not joking," I said, feeling my confidence waver slightly. "I really did make the reservation. Under Adrian's name. Just check your system." Patricia's smirk widened. "Right. And I'm married to a prince." Her colleague giggled. From behind me, I heard a woman's voice, deliberately loud enough to carry. "Look at her dress. Probably from a thrift store." I turned slightly and saw a woman in a gorgeous designer gown whispering to her friend, both of them staring at me. The friend responded, equally loud, "How did she even get past the door?" Laughter rippled through the waiting area. My face was burning now, but I stood my ground. I'd dealt with judgment my whole life. Growing up poor, I wore second-hand clothes and endured classmates' mockery. I thought I'd left that behind, but apparently, cruelty existed at every level of society. Patricia raised her hand and snapped her fingers. A tall man in an expensive suit approached, his expression already annoyed before he even knew what was happening. His name tag identified him as Harrison, the manager. "What seems to be the problem, Patricia?" he asked, eyeing me with obvious disdain. "Mr. Harrison, this woman claims she has a reservation under Mr. Adrian's name," Patricia said, her tone suggesting I'd claimed to be royalty. Harrison pulled out a tablet and scrolled through it. I saw him pause when he found Adrian's name. He looked at me, looked back at the tablet, and frowned. "Ma'am, Mr. Adrian is one of our most distinguished clients. I find it highly unlikely that you're associated with his party." His voice was condescending, like he was explaining something simple to a child. "I'm his wife," I said firmly. "I made the reservation to surprise him for our anniversary." "He's coming directly from his office." Patricia actually snorted. "His wife? Ma'am, I've seen pictures of Mrs. Adrian in magazines. She wears Chanel, not that." She gestured at my dress with barely concealed disgust. I felt confused. "What magazines?" "I don't do press. I avoid all that publicity stuff." Harrison sighed, a long suffering sound. "Ma'am, please don't make this difficult. This is clearly a misunderstanding. Perhaps you're at the wrong restaurant?" By now, a small crowd had gathered. The woman in the designer gown had her phone out, filming. Her friend was already typing on her phone, probably posting to social media. I heard her whisper, "This is going viral." Woman pretends to be billionaire's wife. More laughter. Someone else pulled out their phone. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Please," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "just call the number on the reservation. Verify it. I'm telling the truth." Harrison's expression hardened. "I've had quite enough of this charade." He turned to Patricia. "Should I call the police?" Patricia pretended to consider it. "I think security can handle one delusional woman." My heart dropped. "What?" "No, I have every right to be here. I have a reservation." Harrison's voice went ice cold. "Ma'am, you're disturbing our guests. You're clearly a charity case trying to sneak into a place you can't afford. This behavior is unacceptable." He raised his hand and 2 large security guards appeared as if from nowhere. "Gentlemen, please escort this woman from the premises." "No, wait," I said, panic rising in my chest. "Please, just wait a few minutes. My husband will be here any moment. He can explain everything. But the guards were already moving toward me. One of them spoke, his voice not unkind but firm. "Ma'am, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Patricia was smirking openly now. "How embarrassing," she said to her colleague, loud enough for everyone to hear. Each guard took one of my arms. Their grips weren't painful, but they were firm and unyielding. I felt my feet start to move as they guided me toward the exit. "Let go of me," I said, trying to pull away. "You're making a terrible mistake." The woman with the phone was narrating now, like she was reporting breaking news. "Oh my God, she's actually being dragged out. This is insane." The crowd was larger now, some people laughing, others looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. I felt humiliated in a way I hadn't felt since I was a teenager, being mocked for my worn-out shoes. "Please," I was almost begging now, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "Just call Adrian. Call him and ask." Harrison followed behind us, his arms crossed. "Save your stories, ma'am. We've heard them all before." The guards were pulling me toward the entrance, past all those judging eyes, past the crystal chandeliers and marble floors. I was about to be thrown out onto the street like garbage, on my anniversary, when I'd only been trying to do something special for my husband. And then the doors burst open. The sound was so forceful that everyone froze. The guards stopped pulling me. Every head turned toward the entrance. And there stood Adrian. He was still in his business suit from the office, his tie slightly loosened, his briefcase in one hand. But it was his face that made my heart skip. I'd seen Adrian angry before, but never like this. His eyes swept the scene, landing on the guards holding my arms, on my tear-stained face, and something dangerous flashed across his expression. "What is going on here?" His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a knife. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Adrian's eyes locked onto the guards holding me, and when he spoke again, his voice was deadly calm. "Take your hands off my wife." Now. The guards released me so fast you'd think I'd burned them. They stepped back, their faces pale. I stumbled slightly, and Adrian was there in 3 long strides, pulling me into his arms. "Are you okay?" he murmured into my hair, his hands checking me over like he was searching for injuries. "Did they hurt you?" I shook my head, unable to speak, just clinging to him. Over his shoulder, I saw Patricia's face drain of all color. Harrison had taken several steps backward, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Harrison tried to recover first. Mr. Adrian," he stammered, taking a tentative step forward. "We didn't know—" Adrian's head snapped toward him, and whatever Harrison saw in his eyes made him stop mid-sentence. "Didn't know what?" Adrian's voice was quiet, which made it even more terrifying. "That my wife made a reservation under my name? The name that's right there in your system with a VIP designation?" He turned to the guards, who looked like they wanted to sink through the floor. "You put your hands on her?" "On my wife?" The first guard tried to explain. "Sir, we were just following orders from management." "Following orders to assault a guest?" Adrian interrupted. "To physically remove someone who had a confirmed reservation?" Patricia was trying to edge away, to disappear into the background, but Adrian's eyes found her. "Patricia, stay exactly where you are." She froze like a statue. Adrian pulled out his phone, still keeping one arm around me. He dialed a number and put it on speaker. It rang twice before a jovial voice answered. "Peterson speaking." "Mr. Peterson, it's Adrian. I'm standing in your restaurant right now." The owner's voice brightened even more. "Adrian! What a wonderful surprise. I hope everything is to your satisfaction." "Not exactly." Adrian cut him off. "Your staff just physically removed my wife from the premises. They called her a charity case, mocked her appearance, and had security guards drag her toward the exit." There was a long, horrible silence on the other end, then the sound of a chair scraping violently against a floor. "What?" Peterson's voice had gone from jovial to panicked in 1 second. "I'm coming down right now. Don't move. Don't go anywhere." The line went dead. Harrison's hands were visibly shaking now. Patricia had tears streaming down her face. The other staff members had scattered, suddenly very busy with tasks that took them far away from us. The crowd of wealthy diners stood frozen, their phones still out but no longer filming with such enthusiasm. The woman in the designer gown who'd mocked my dress looked like she might be sick. Her friend had gone completely pale. Adrian addressed the entire restaurant, his voice carrying to every corner. "Let me make something crystal clear to everyone here. This woman you just humiliated, her name is Eliana. She's my wife of 5 years. She came here tonight to surprise me for our anniversary." He paused, letting that sink in. Several people had the grace to look ashamed. "And you judged her because she wore a simple dress?" "Because she took a taxi instead of a limousine. Because she doesn't drip with diamonds?" The woman who'd been filming slowly lowered her phone, her hand trembling. There was a commotion from the back of the restaurant and Mr. Peterson came rushing out, his face flushed, his usually perfect hair disheveled. He took in the scene, his eyes moving from Adrian's furious expression to my tear-stained face to the terrified staff members. "Adrian, Peterson looked devastated. "I don't even know what to say." "This is inexcusable." "Your manager called my wife a charity case," Adrian said, each word precise and cutting. "Your hostess mocked her. Your security guards put their hands on her and tried to throw her out while your guests filmed it for entertainment." Peterson turned to Harrison and Patricia, and the fury on his face made them both step backward. But Adrian wasn't done. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "You know what's interesting, Peterson? I was coming here tonight not just for dinner. I was going to finalize something after our meal." He opened the folder, showing Peterson the documents inside. I couldn't see what they were, but Peterson's eyes went wide. "The purchase agreement," Adrian said calmly, "for this building. I own the property your restaurant leases. As of this afternoon, I'm officially your landlord." The gasp that went through the restaurant was audible. Harrison looked like he might faint. Patricia was openly crying now. Adrian continued, his voice still that dangerous calm. "So you employ people who treat guests like garbage based on their appearance, people who mock and humiliate someone because of what they're wearing. That's the kind of establishment you're running in my building?" Peterson looked like he was going to be sick. He turned to Harrison. "You're fired. Effective immediately. Clear out your office." Harrison's legs seemed to give out. He grabbed a nearby chair for support. "Please, Mr. Peterson, I have a family. You didn't mean to humiliate a guest?" Peterson's voice was ice. He turned to Patricia. "You too. Pack your things. You're done." Patricia collapsed into sobs. "I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Please?" The security guard stood rigid, clearly expecting to be next. The entire restaurant was silent except for Patricia's crying. And then I heard my own voice. I hadn't planned to speak, but the words came out anyway. "Wait." Everyone turned to look at me. Adrian looked down, surprised. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "you don't have to say anything. They don't deserve—" "No," I interrupted gently. "I need to say this." I stepped away from Adrian's protective embrace and walked toward Patricia and Harrison. They both looked terrified. "What you did tonight was cruel," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "It was wrong, and it hurt me deeply." Patricia's sobs grew louder. Harrison hung his head. "But I want you to know something," I continued. "I grew up poor, really poor. I wore secondhand clothes my entire childhood. I shopped at thrift stores because that's all my mother could afford, and people judged me for it every single day. I saw several people in the crowd look away, ashamed. Kids at school mocked my worn-out shoes. Teachers assumed I wasn't smart because I looked poor. Store clerks followed me around like I was going to steal something. I know what it feels like to be judged by my appearance. I know how much it hurts." Patricia was looking at me now, her eyes red and swollen. "I could have you both fired," I said. "Mr. Peterson just offered to do exactly that, and honestly, you deserve it. What you did was terrible." Harrison nodded, accepting his fate. "But instead," I said, and I saw hope flicker in their eyes, "I want this to be a lesson. Not just for you, but for everyone here." I turned to address the whole restaurant. You judged me because I didn't fit your image of wealth, because I wasn't wearing a designer gown or carrying a luxury handbag. But what does that say about you? About what you value? The woman who'd filmed me had tears running down her face now. Real wealth isn't about labels or jewelry, I said. It's about character, about kindness, about treating every single person with dignity and respect, regardless of what they're wearing or how they arrived. I looked back at Patricia and Harrison. Can you learn from this? Can you promise to treat every guest who walks through that door with respect, whether they're wearing Chanel or clothes from a thrift store? Patricia nodded frantically. Yes, absolutely. I swear to you, Mrs. Eliana, I will never ever judge someone like that again. I'm so deeply, truly sorry. Harrison's voice was hoarse. You're showing us more grace than we deserve. I will spend every day proving that I learned this lesson. You have my word. I turned to Mr. Peterson. Don't fire them. Give them a chance to be better, to do better. Peterson looked at Adrian, clearly deferring to him. My husband was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe. Love. Definitely. I support whatever my wife decides, Adrian said finally. But understand this, Harrison. Patricia, one more incident like this, just one, and not only will you lose your jobs, I'll make sure every restaurant in this city knows exactly why. Are we clear? They both nodded vigorously. Peterson stepped forward. There will be mandatory training for all staff, new policies, a complete review of how we treat guests. This will never, ever happen again in my restaurant. You have my personal guarantee. I felt Adrian's arm come around my waist again. Now, he said, we came here for our anniversary dinner. If you don't mind, we'd like that table you promised. Peterson personally escorted us to the best table in the restaurant, by the window overlooking the city lights. As we walked through the dining room, several people stood up. The woman in the designer gown approached us, her face streaked with tears. Mrs. Eliana, she said, her voice breaking, I'm Stephanie. I'm the one who filmed you and made those horrible comments. I've already deleted the video. I'm so ashamed. Please, please forgive me. Behind her, her friend was crying too. We were awful. We judged you and mocked you, and you did nothing to deserve it. We're so sorry. One by one, others approached, a man who'd laughed, a woman who'd whispered, each one offering genuine apologies. And to each one, I said the same thing. We all make mistakes. Thank you for owning yours. That takes courage. When we finally sat down, Adrian took both my hands across the table. I have never been more proud of you than I am right now, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You had every right to let them suffer the consequences, and instead, you showed them grace. You're incredible. I smiled, squeezing his hands. You taught me that revenge doesn't change people. Only kindness can do that. Patricia herself came to take our order, her hand still shaking slightly. She was attentive and respectful, not just to us, but to every table she passed. I watched Harrison at the hostess stand, greeting an elderly couple in simple clothes with genuine warmth and respect. Over the next few days, the story spread. Not the video Stephanie had planned to post, but a different story. News outlets picked it up. Billionaire's wife teaches powerful lesson in humanity. The restaurant implemented new training called Dignity for All. Patricia started volunteering at a homeless shelter on her days off, later telling me it changed her entire perspective on people. Harrison created new protocols ensuring every guest felt valued, regardless of appearance. Stephanie posted a public apology video that went viral, talking about the danger of judging people and starting a movement against appearance-based discrimination. People shared their own stories of being judged, creating a wave of awareness and change. But for me, life went on as before. I still shop at regular stores. I still wear simple clothes. I still take taxis. Because that night taught me something too. It confirmed what I'd always believed deep down. My worth was never in my clothes. It was never in designer labels or expensive jewelry. It was in who I chose to be, how I chose to treat others, and the grace I showed even when people hurt me. I'm still the same Eliana who grew up poor and knows what it's like to be judged, and I wouldn't change that for anything because it taught me empathy. It taught me kindness. It taught me that every person you meet is fighting their own battle, and you never know what someone is going through just by looking at them. That night could have ended so differently. I could have demanded they be fired. I could have used my husband's power to destroy their careers and their lives. I could have let bitterness and revenge guide my actions. But what would that have taught anyone? What would that have changed? Sometimes the greatest strength isn't in punishing those who wrong you. It's in showing them a better way. It's in choosing kindness when you have every right to choose revenge. It's in remembering your own pain and using it to prevent someone else's. I'm still that girl who shops at regular stores and wears simple dresses. That will never change, because my worth was never in my clothes. It was always in my character, in my choices, in how I treat others when nobody's watching and when everyone is. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. Have you ever been judged unfairly because of how you looked? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experience matters. Your voice matters. Subscribe for more real stories about dignity, respect, and what truly makes us valuable as human beings. And remember this: never judge a book by its cover, and never let anyone make you feel less than you are. You are worthy exactly as you are, not because of what you wear or what you own, but because of who you are inside. Your character is your true wealth, your kindness is your real luxury, and your dignity can never be taken away by anyone, no matter what they say or how they treat you. See you in the next story. Until then, be kind, be gracious, and never forget your worth.